we're going to break down a recently published study by Nick Norwitz et al. I'm sure you've heard about this up to now. If you follow Nick Norwitz over on YouTube and also Instagram, he's putting out amazing content. He is a really, really interesting guy, really, really intelligent individual who's still at Harvard, I believe, but he's helping to orchestrate a lot of studies looking at lean mass hyperresponders. And I think this study that we're going to talk about today was looking at LDL cholesterol levels associated with coronary CCTAs. This is a coronary computed topography angiogram, I believe is what the acronym stands for. This is a way to enumerate how much coronary artery plaque there is, comparing controls, 80 controls of individuals, as you can see on the screen here, who have been on a low-carb ketogenic diet for at least 4.5 years compared to 80 matched controls of the Miami Heart cohort. And what was really interesting here is there was not a significant association between LDL cholesterol levels in either group and coronary artery calcium, but that's not the focus of today's session. What we're going to focus on here is how these significantly elevated LDL cholesterol levels in the individuals who were identified as lean mass hyperresponders was not associated with higher amounts of coronary calcium scoring compared to the matched controls in the Miami Heart study. Okay, now I know sometimes on these live videos, what can happen is there's a little lag on my audio on the video. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to maximize the screen here. Hopefully you can still see everything okay. And let's just dive into this, my friends. And any nutrition related question is fair game. Here we go. You can see on the screen, we have, this is the study that we're diving into. Any questions? I see your chat right here. Thank you all again for being here. Appreciate your likes, your comments, your shares, and any questions that you have, just let me know. So let's get into it. So the title of this study. Now, this was not a randomized controlled trial. We're looking at associations between one cohort of individuals compared to another that are matched in many different categories, which we will dive into shortly. The title is Carbohydrate Restriction Induced Elevations in LDL Cholesterol and Atherosclerosis, the Keto Trial. Okay, so you can see here Nicholas Norwitz, David Feldman, Matthew Budoff, a lot of interesting people that you've heard over the years, I'm sure. Feldman has been doing this work for a long time. He's an awesome individual. Okay, let's get into it. So for some reason, this screen isn't so big, so I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger for y'all. All right, so how is that? All right, so I zoomed in a little bit. Okay, so we can look at the graphical abstract and then we can further dive into the details. Okay, so as I mentioned, there's 80 subjects in each cohort. The keto cohort, which have been identified as lean mass hyperresponders, as you know, these are individuals with an exceedingly high LDL cholesterol. The threshold is 190 milligrams per deciliter. A high HDL cholesterol, I believe it was 80 milligrams per deciliter, and a low triglycerides level. I think this is 70 milligrams per deciliter. Could be off on the triglyceride levels here. Sorry. Yeah, so LDL is greater than 60, and I can't remember the triglyceride cut point, but it is on the lower side. So none of the individuals in the keto cohort were identified as having familial hyperlipidemia. But essentially what they found is there wasn't despite the fact that the LDL cholesterol levels were significantly higher, as you can see here in the keto cohort, there was not a strong statistical association with arterial plaquing and LDL cholesterol, despite the fact that these individuals had been on a keto diet for at least 4.5 plus years, and they are matched in many other aspects. And so I think this is really, really interesting. Let's look at some of the analysis here. And I think the characteristics of anytime we're looking at a epidemiological study or a cohort study like this, we want to look at the baseline characteristics of these study subjects. So we have 160 total subjects, 80 of which were matched to 80 other 80 of which keto lean mass hyperresponder subjects were matched to 80 Miami Heart Study subjects for age, gender, race, diabetes status, high blood pressure, and past smoking status. Okay, so here's what we have here. You can see here, no difference, in terms of age, pretty well matched. Body mass index was a little bit lower on the keto group compared to the Miami Heart group. I'm not sure what to say about that. Maybe we'll have to get Nick or Dave on the podcast to talk more. But here's where things get really interesting. Total cholesterol is significantly higher on the people who are identified as lean mass hyperresponders compared to the Miami Heart Study subjects. LDL cholesterol is more than double, okay, for these individuals. And triglycerides are significantly lower. HDL is 1.5 times higher. Pretty well matched for blood pressure, diastolic, and so forth. Not significant differences in hemoglobin A1C. Past smoking status, very similar. Okay, so we also want to look at the coronary artery calcium score, because this is the way that we can look at coronary artery atherosclerosis. And as you might understand, there's non-significant differences between the two groups, despite the fact that LDL cholesterol levels were significantly higher in the individuals who are identified as lean mass hyperresponders who have been doing a ketogenic diet for 4.5 years. No difference in coronary artery calcium, stenosis, plaque scoring, and so forth. So I think that's really interesting. So again, this is a graphical abstract of the study that we've been talking about, comparing two groups of individuals that have significantly different LDL cholesterol levels. And despite all that, the coronary artery plaquing is not much different. So I think this is really interesting, my friends, and something to take note of. Now, this doesn't mean that there's never a situation where LDL cholesterol is correlated with coronary artery plaque. I know the thumbnail is a little bit sensational, but again, we're comparing two cohorts of people. The Miami Heart cohort, 80 subjects matched for age, gender, diabetes status, smoking status, compared to people who have been doing a low-carb ketogenic style diet for at least 4.5 years. They are age matched, hypertension matched, diabetes status matched, past smoking status, etc. Okay, the keto group has significantly more than the LDL cholesterol is twofold higher than the age matched individuals in the Miami Heart cohort, but there are no significant difference in coronary artery plaque in between the two groups. So this is really interesting because a lot of you have been on a low carb diet for quite a long time, and your doctors are concerned about it. So I think we're really in the infancy of this information when it comes to understanding this so-called lean mass hyperresponder phenotype. So the study goes on to talk about some of these other details, which we can get into. Of course, there are some limitations and so forth. But in conclusion, after a mean duration of 4.7 years of carbohydrate restricted elevations in LDL cholesterol levels, a metabolically healthy cohort of subjects with CRD did not have a greater atherosclerotic plaque burden than participants from a population-based cohort with markedly lower LDL cholesterol levels. Given the preponderance of prior evidence on LDL as a risk factor for atherosclerotic disease, the increasing prevalence of the lean mass hyperresponder and lean mass hyperresponder phenotype, and the rise in the popularity of the carbohydrate restricted diet and the general lack of evidence on this phenotype, this study of lean mass hyperresponder and near lean mass hyperresponder should be a research priority. Okay, so let's look at some of the images again. Very, very interesting. So we have the LDL cholesterol levels. As I mentioned, they are about double when comparing the Miami Heart cohort. Again, age matched, diabetes matched, hypertension matched, gender matched, past smoking status matched, compared to the people who had been doing a keto diet for at least 4.7 years on average. But the coronary plaque score, there's not a strong correlation. In fact, overall, it's the median is very similar. There are outliers on both sides. You have this individual here in the keto diet study arm who had been doing this for 4.5 years, who has a pretty high coronary artery plaque. But then you also have these two outliers here with the Miami Heart. So the median plaque level, and I'll make this, I see that some of you can't see this. So if I zoom in and then go like this, okay. So you can see that there. Okay. So what we're looking here is at the coronary artery calcium score per the CCTA. And we're comparing, again, this cohort of 80 individuals, age matched, gender matched, smoking status, diabetes, hypertension matched, etc., compared to people who've been doing a low carb keto diet for 4.7 years on average. No significant difference in total plaque score, coronary artery plaquing score, despite the fact that LDL cholesterol level in this group, as you can see, is more than double. So I think these analysis, raise more, questions than answers. I would love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below, my friends. But grateful that you're here live. Thanks for tuning in. As I mentioned, I'm going to leave this abstract right here of the study. Thank you, Nick Norwitz and David Feldman, for obviously putting out amazing research and helping us better understand the lean mass hyperresponder phenotype and the lipid energy model and beyond. So I'm going to pop out your chat here. Super grateful for your likes, my friends, your comments. Awesome. Let's get to some live questions. Okay, so this is a great question by Tim Scholl. Please talk about homocysteine. Mine is 17. So, a lot of people don't talk about this, but the homocysteine assay is really not a good assay. It's just not. The way to test that doesn't mean that you don't have a B vitamin or homocysteine metabolic problem. But homocysteine is in dynamic equilibrium with S-adenosyl homocysteine. So they're going back and forth. And you might be wondering, well, what is S-adenosyl homocysteine? So this is all in the pathway of making glutathione and beyond. And it turns out that, the homocysteine test is not really a good assay, a good test. So I don't recommend people freak out about this. I would, of course, consider, if you have a really high homocysteine, to possibly consider B vitamins, methylfolate, methyl B12, things like that. But I don't put too much weight on this. So let's just say, for example, you go to LabCorp or Quest and test your homocysteine. If it gets spun down in the centrifuge, the vacuum container, and it's not immediately put on ice, your levels could be all over the place. So I'm not really too worried about that. But if your homocysteine is consistently high, you might want to supplement with activated or methyl B12 and methylfolate. So great question there. Tom says he's a lean mass hyperresponder who's 69 years old and his coronary artery calcium score is 0. So good for you, Tom. Okay. Westfield 90 says, now if we can only get mainstream medicine on board. Yeah, good luck with that. So Bill B has a great question. He says, well, if LDL is not related to coronary artery plaque buildup, then what is? Now, this is a great question, Bill. The thing is, I don't know that anyone really understands. I think it's multifactorial. I think it's a combination based upon the research that I've done and interviews that I've done with individuals. Higher blood pressure, higher blood viscosity, increased oxidative stress in the presence of LDL could initiate and exacerbate atherosclerosis. So it's not to say that LDL is unrelated whatsoever. Obviously, as Dr. Peter Attia has talked about, LDL is causally linked with the initiation and the process of atherosclerosis. But it's necessary, but it's insufficient. So you need this initial oxidative step where LDL will become modified or oxidized. It will be engulfed by the macrophage and create this foam cell and this fatty streak and then get calcified and on and on. So LDL is obviously part of the problem, but in metabolically healthy people, is LDL the sine qua non of the etiology of cardiovascular disease as we know it? Maybe not in metabolically healthy people. So this is what we need to focus on, is metabolic health. Okay, David says, is insulin resistance more closely related to plaque buildup? There's pretty good evidence, David, to suggest that insulin resistance is part of the problem of the coronary artery plaque and major adverse cardiovascular disease event risk is insulin resistance. So yes. Certain injections didn't help with clots. Yes, I would agree. Okay, Chris says, what are the elements in a plaque that's being built up besides microplastic? Yeah, so, part of this is oxidation, so oxidative stress. So having free radical stress, which comes from, obviously maybe eating too much sugar, and the ratio of oxidation to reduction is off. Heavy metals affect that, of course, possibly diets enriched in refined oils, seed oils, because they don't have vitamin E and things like that to prevent the oxidation and so on. So that's really interesting. Okay, it takes 6 men to carry a man to his grave, but only 1 woman to put him in there. Interesting. So I think he's referring to stress, possibly. Stress is a major problem that can exacerbate atherosclerosis. So that's a really interesting point. Thank you for sharing that. Tom says, should someone with a 0 coronary artery calcium score, but an ascending aortic aneurysm stand on a low-carb diet? Tom, this is a great question for your health professional. I would work with someone who really understands this. There's a lot of people around the country who are pretty savvy with low carb nutrition. So I would consider that. I can't give you a yay or nay on this. I would just say make sure you're walking, you're exercising, balancing, moderating your stress, managing sleep, and optimizing circadian rhythm health. Crash Bandit, I thought the nurses' health studies showed that LDL was a low risk factor to other things. Yeah. Guys, the very interesting thing about LDL is obviously it is connected to cardiovascular disease, but the curious thing is the actuaries at life insurance companies, they don't even care about LDL. They don't even ask about it. That's really interesting to me because they're in the game of making money and betting. They don't want to pay out a lot of money if you're high risk, right? They look at your blood pressure, they look at HDL, but they don't look at LDL cholesterol. That's really interesting to me. So let's see. Okay, great. Daniel has a point here. Daniel says, another question, does ApoB elevated due to intake of fructose and glucose? Yeah, so this is a really interesting thing, guys, is it's not just a low carb, high fat diet that can increase, your LDL, right? You can eat muffins, cream pies, cheesecake, Pop-Tarts, breakfast cereals enriched in sugar. Like you can eat a bunch of trash and guess what? That's going to raise your cholesterol as well. You can under-exercise and overeat. There's a lot of things that can affect cholesterol. So I just think this is definitely a more nuanced conversation than compared to what the mainstream medical community has portrayed to us over the years. So I think this is really interesting to consider. Again, thank you all for being here. Are you enjoying the content? Let me know by hitting that like button. I'd look at your likes right now. We have 94 likes, so I guess this is okay, not amazing, but if it is great, please hit that like button. We are talking about a new analysis here by Nick Norwitz et al. I'm going to cut back to the screen so you guys and gals can see the study that we've been diving into today, and I'm taking some of your live questions, which is really fun. This is the study. This is not a randomized controlled trial. We're comparing 2 sets of people. One set of people that is not on a ketogenic diet that is matched by age, by blood pressure, by gender, by diabetes status, compared to a subset of individuals who have been on a low carb diet for 4.7 years on average. And we're comparing, seeing if there's any statistical association with the high LDL cholesterol that is commonly found in individuals who go on a carbohydrate restricted diet. We're seeing if there is any association with that high LDL and plaque buildup in the coronary arteries. And the assessment tool here is a coronary CTA. And this is a coronary CT scan of the coronary arteries. And it turns out that there was no statistical association with coronary plaque buildup as it is pertained to LDL cholesterol levels in metabolically healthy people compared to age and gender matched individuals who do not have high LDL cholesterol. That's the summary of this analysis. Now, I'm sure Nick Norwitz and David Feldman can enlighten us on even more details of this study, but I think it's just very interesting to learn that when you compare metabolically healthy people who just so happen to have a high LDL cholesterol, that was not, excuse me, linked with higher prevalences of coronary artery calcium scoring. So that, my friends, is what we've been talking about. Man, my throat is itchy. Okay. Melissa, thank you for being here. Melissa is 45 years old and she has an ApoB of 79. Melissa, what's your ApoA1? Like, we need to know. We need to know the ratio of ApoB to ApoA1. Knowing your ApoB without knowing your ApoA1 is like saying, I don't know a good analogy here. It's like looking at this is loose, but if you're trying to say, well, hey, do I have enough money to afford this house? We need to know your debt to income ratio. What's your cash flow? And so in essence, ApoB to A1, we need to know the ratio. So you need to run both. Melissa, I can't give you a definitive answer. Ideally, your ApoB to A1 ratio would be around 0.5, 0.6. That would be great. Dr. or D-Opt TDR says, I've tried everything naturally over a year and my efforts did bring it down. Sorry, did bring what down? Oh, your total cholesterol. Okay. Lynn says, so aspirin will slow the buildup of plaque? I think aspirin helps thin the blood a little bit. But that's all I know about aspirin. I don't know. Donnie says, once the plaque was built up, is it possible to reduce or even make it disappear? This is a good question. This is really dynamic. There's only been one study, to the best of my knowledge, that has actually really looked at this. So great question. Great question. Friends, I just want to take a quick pause and mention our sponsor, Myoscience. Look, the new year is upon us. Many of you are going to start intermittent fasting. You want to cut back on some of the excess calories that you may have consumed over the holiday season. The Berberine Fasting Accelerator is a great tool to help kickstart your fast. What makes this product really unique is it helps curb food cravings for junk that is derailing your health efforts. So if you haven't yet tried it, there's over 330 reviews over at myoscience.com. Use the code podcast to save. I'll put links in the description below. Berberine's really cool. It's been used for 3,000 years. It's one of the only natural products that actually works. You can test this in real time, about 60 to 90 minutes using a blood glucometer or a ketone meter. It raises your ketones. It helps support healthy glucose metabolism. Tons of research on berberine. Definitely check that out and save if you want to optimize your metabolic health in 2025 and beyond. Okay. Question here from Angelica. What do you think about cayenne pepper and turmeric? Cool. Like, go for it. Yeah, I think turmeric's great. Like and share. Yeah, thanks, guys. Some people are asking about that. Cool. Okay. Zigzag says, I take about 1 gram of EPA per day. So this is one of the long chain PUFAs. Remember, we have polyunsaturated fatty acids. People talk about linoleic acid from seed oils. Ooh, right? But there's all kinds of PUFAs. You have oleic acid. You have conjugated linoleic acid. Like then you have EPA. You have DPA. You have DHA. You have all sorts of PUFAs. EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, is a health-promoting long-chain PUFA, and it can lower triglycerides. So that's why Zigzag takes it. So cool. Whoa. So this is D-Opt Trader. He or she says, my total cholesterol was 8. My family doctor and cardiologist said it's probably a genetic defect. Is there anything I can do to bring it down? Is it 8 or 800? Sorry, I'm not level of 8 milligrams per deciliter. I've never even heard of such a thing, but maybe. Okay, Arn has a great question. If it's not cholesterol, what causes the plaque? So cholesterol is involved. It's related, of course, but it seems that the research is suggesting that poor metabolic health can exacerbate the atherosclerotic propensity of cholesterol to cause plaque. It helps to exacerbate or worsen the plaque formation. And it seems that LDL cholesterol is susceptible to becoming, because LDL has to get into your vascular endothelial tissue. It's a messenger. It goes in the artery wall and then it goes back out. But for most people, they have a high enough HDL and healthy enough HDL to pull the cholesterol out before it becomes modified or oxidized. So how does it become modified or oxidized? If you smoke, if you have high blood pressure, if you have high glucose, if you have high insulin, high oxidative stress or free radical stress. Where do we get all these conditions, right? High blood pressure, blood viscosity, iron overload. How do we get there in the first place? Consuming junk food, smoking, not exercising, being sedentary. These are all risk factors for having an increased propensity for our LDL cholesterol to become modified, oxidized, and get trapped in our artery walls, where then it can translate into this foam cell, this fatty streak, and create plaque. All right. Debbie says she took berberine and had adverse effects, headache and vomiting, which you never want to have. About 5 to 7% of people who take berberine, they have GI issues. Debbie, I'm really sorry. What brand did you take? Was it Myoscience? Was it just something on Amazon? I would suggest taking it with food next time, but maybe it's just not for you. MCA has a great question. If statins are so widely prescribed, why is heart disease still sky high? This is a great, I love this question. I'm not sure what to say on that other than the fact that, when you look at the research on statins is kind of not good in terms of the number needed to treat to prevent one death from heart disease. I would encourage you to go into google.com/scholar, or you can go into PubMed. They're the same. I just like Google Scholar because I can create alerts. And you look at some of the data on the NNT, the number needed to treat. This is often how in pharmacologic research, we're able to ascertain the efficacy of a drug. And the number needed to treat for a statin can range based upon the clinical trial from on the low end, like 60-ish up to 400. And so it seems that how statins, they do lower LDL for sure, because they block the isoprenoid pathway. And so it's just basically it's the Achilles heel of the whole isoprenoid pathway, and they lower LDL cholesterol. But they also have an anti-inflammatory effect. So it seems that how statins might have impact some people and reduce, especially after someone's had a heart attack, statins have been shown to help prevent future heart attacks, probably because they're anti-inflammatory. But it seems like there's a lot of ways to reduce inflammation without having to just suffocate the isoprenoid pathway, and it links with its associated consequences, such as diabetes, such as rhabdomyolysis. I mean, there are consequences when you just block a biochemical pathway. You can prove me wrong. Go Google isoprenoids. This is the whole synthesis. This is where we get coenzyme Q10. This is where we get fat. Some other. There's this other compound called jaranol. And I know it seems like I'm making stuff up here, but the isoprenoid pathway is actually quite important. You need coenzyme Q10 in your mitochondria. So when you take even red yeast rice or statins for a long time, you're decreasing the amount of coenzyme Q10 that your cells are making, largely in the liver, but this is also probably in other tissues in the body. And there are benefits to these different molecules. So, Rochelle has a great comment, right? And all of you listening, read this comment right here. Rochelle says, my LDL cholesterol is 102 milligrams per deciliter, presumably, and my HDL is 98. Yet my doctor wants me to take statins. That, you know what, Rochelle, that's absurd. That's just looking at your LDL to HDL. That's a little interesting. I would suggest you retest your ApoB to ApoA1 ratio. I would also want to look at, say, your fibrinogen. and your LP little a. And if your doctor is just insistent that and Rochelle, I'd like to know your age. If you're a young woman, I don't know if there's really any good data to suggest that lowering your LDL anymore would actually benefit you in terms of reducing your risk for cardiovascular disease. So that is quite interesting. Okay. A lot of questions are coming in about lowering triglycerides. Really important. How do you lower your blood triglycerides? Well, the first step is to reduce the carbohydrate, especially refined carbohydrate intake in your diet. So cut out the sugar. Guys, it's easy to do. No more pizza, no more pasta, no more cookies, no more bread, no more sweets, no more ice cream. Cut out the carbs. It'll drop your triglycerides like a rock. I was about to say, and take walks, right? Walking after meals is one of the best ways to lower your blood triglycerides. You can also get high blood triglycerides by eating a lot of liquid fat. So fried foods are out. No more fried foods. A bunch of salad dressings with oil and things like that, reduce them. But most people get an elevation in blood triglycerides because they are insulin resistant. The best way to improve your body's sensitivity to insulin is by moving your muscles. It turns out that, guess what? Guess where insulin does its job? At the level of skeletal muscle. If you don't move your muscles, you will be insulin resistant. Just take someone and go, if you don't believe me, go sit in your bedroom for a week, test your glucose before and after, then go do a glucose tolerance test. You will be insulin resistant from just being sedentary. Most people are sedentary. Right now, I've already walked 9,000 steps and I'm going to go to the gym a little bit later. So movement is one of the best ways to lower your blood triglycerides in addition to reducing the processed carbohydrates that you ingest in your diet. So that's really important. Are y'all digging this? Let me know by hitting that like button. Okay. So Thelas says, I'm jealous of those numbers, Rochelle. Yeah. So she has great lipid levels. I mean, another tool that can lower your blood triglycerides is having more fatty fish. It turns out that the omega-3s that are found in fish and grass-fed beef, by the way, lower blood triglycerides. Bill B says, a 20 minutes on a spin bike drops my blood glucose like a rock. Yeah. Love hearing that, Bill B. All right. It's amazing. Exercise is, I really think that we undervalue the importance of exercise when it comes to metabolic health. So, anyway, guys and gals, I appreciate you being on. Hopefully you got some value from this quick study breakdown. Here's the study. If you're still, you can take a screenshot of this graphical abstract by Dave Feldman, Nick Norwitz et al. Really, really interesting stuff there. And again, if you want to optimize your metabolic health, check out the novel Berberine Fasting Accelerator by Myoscience. Phenomenal product, well over 300 reviews from people just like you. The best way to take this is with your last meal, 2 to 3 capsules, and it's going to help kickstart your fast. And you can test this with blood glucose or blood ketone levels. You can also take 1 to 2 capsules in the morning to elongate your fast. But compressing your feeding window, especially eating closer to bedtime, has been shown to help with preventing weight gain and so forth. So, grateful that you're all here. I really appreciate your engagement. Thanks for your likes, your comments, your shares. We're going to do a fuller deep dive on this study down the road. But Happy New Year to all of you. This is the first live of 2025. Can't believe it's 2025 already. And any other questions, just let me know next week. But I'm just looking here to see if there's any other questions that we should really dive into. But awesome to see you all. Appreciate your comments, your likes, your shares. We will catch you tomorrow morning about a raw milk debate. Yeah, this is a good one. You want to tune in. So if you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe. This can be an awesome video launching tomorrow at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. All right, that's it for me tonight. I'm going to go hit the gym. Hopefully you are exercising tonight as well. And we'll catch you on a future one down the road. Bye now.